Hello, everybody, and thanks for joining us again at Right at Home, the homeowner's inside guide to getting it done right the first time. I am joined by Ryan Johnson. He is the owner of Right Roofing, Siding, and Windows. How are we doing today, Ryan?
Doing great, Mike. How are you?
Doing good. So we've got a good, interesting episode today. Our episode is going to basically cover how long should a roof last in Iowa. So what we're going to be covering is what is a realistic lifespan of a roof in central Iowa and what shortens and extends it. So how long should homeowners in Iowa realistically expect their roofs to last?
Typically in Iowa, because of our freeze thaw cycle, the hot temperatures that we get, typically you're going to get about 18 to up to 25 years, depending on a few different factors.
Okay. So let's just jump into that 18 to 25 years. Why do architectural shingles in the Midwest typically last 18 to 25 years instead of the advertised 30 years?
Well, there's probably four main reasons that we run into.
Okay.
And this would be more poor installation is probably the number one reason. Inadequate ventilation, corners cut on your flashings and your detail areas, and neglected maintenance, along with just the weather that we get here in Iowa.
You bet. So the neglected maintenance, that's probably one of the biggest contributing factors, I would guess.
For sure. That is definitely a pretty big one. It's kind of like being shocked that your engine fails when you never changed your oil.
Yeah, that makes complete sense. But the roof is one thing that I know that I mean, as a homeowner, you just don't think about it because it's above your head. I never really see my roof. I don't pay attention to it when I pull in my driveway, so I just don't think about it
Yeah,
until a leak
kind of
starts happening.
out of sight, out of mind.
Exactly. That's just one of those things you just don't think about. So that's something people need to think about. So let me ask you this, Ryan. How do Iowa's freeze thaw cycles, hailstorms, and summer heat impact a roof lifespan?
Well, um, the freeze thaw cycle is a big one. So, you're going to get a little moisture that gets into certain areas and then it freezes, it expands, it contracts, it starts popping stuff loose for you. Um, that's a pretty big one here. We get pretty hot temperatures, we get really cold. So we pretty much get all the extremes going on here. Let alone we get the wind, the derecho, terms that we didn't even really know 6 years ago,
Right.
the wind, and then we're kind of in a hail area as well. So you kind of combine all those factors, and that's why our roofs just aren't going to last as long as they would in maybe other milder climates.
You bet. So let's expand on that just a little bit. So with Iowa's freeze thaw cycle, I know that's a big one. Kind of can you explain the science behind it in layman's terms of what is happening to your roof and how that shortens your roof's lifespan?
Yep. So it's basically that moisture just kind of gets in areas. So once you get moisture in between the cracks of the shingles and the little areas, and then when we get the cold temperatures, all that stuff is going to freeze and then it's going to expand. It's going to expand. It can pop sealant on the shingle. It can move backwards, go uphill. Everything we're
Really?
doing is downhill, right? So once it starts going uphill, it kind of starts pushing back up or into the shingles and maybe into your nail heads that maybe weren't installed 100% like they should be. And then that moisture kind of gets in there. And once that starts to happen, it's just going to keep happening year after year for you.
Yep. Hail and wind are kind of self-explanatory. I mean, that just is either going to damage the shingles themselves or blow them off. But so how does the summer heat really impact the lifespan?
Well, just the UV rays, I mean, you can just, it's kind of like being out on a lake in the middle of the summer without a hat on, you know,
Okay.
you're going to come back kind of torched. You know, guys like me are going to get pretty burnt out there. Um, so the heat is just not good. It's going to kind of bake those shingles. And then along with that, if you don't have proper ventilation or that roof isn't breathing like it should be and getting cooled off from the underneath side, then it kind of can cause some blisters, cracking, and premature failure of that roofing system.
Perfect. You just got me right into my next question. Perfect lead in, Ryan. So, can attic ventilation really extend or shorten the life of your roof?
Absolutely. So at Right
Why is
Roofing,
that?
we always check that ventilation first because it's the single biggest factor in whether your roof hits 20 to 30 years. Um, it causes all sorts of issues for you. It's not going to let that heat out of that attic space. Our goal is to get that attic space at the same temperature as the exterior of the house is. So, what that temperature is outside, that's what your attic space you want that to be. Um, so we kind of check all that on every roofing system that we do. So at Right Roofing, we do an attic inspection on every single roof that we install. So that's going to include crawling up in that attic space, making sure bath exhaust fans are vented outside, number one, so we're not getting excess moisture in there. Once you get excess moisture in that attic, that thing wants to rot from the inside out, basically. That's when you get mold issues that kind of arise, issues like that. So during the wintertime, you get that moisture that is going to hit that underside of the roof decking. And so you got moisture going up there, and it's hot, moist air that's coming from taking showers, doing laundry, just breathing inside your house, having 4 or 5 people in there, just emitting moisture into the house. And then once that gets up in that cold attic space and hits that cold roof decking, it wants to condensate. So it's going to start condensating, and then it actually can just kind of start raining in your attic, basically.
So, just out of curiosity, and I'm sure I probably already know the answer to this, but let's just say that the home was designed or built inadequately. I'm sure at Right Roofing, you have some solutions to help fix those problems.
Yeah, correct. So, depending on whether you have a passive system or an active ventilation system, which would mean passive is basically you got to have an intake and you got to have an exhaust, and that needs to be exactly balanced, right? So 50% in, 50% out, it's got to be this perfect balance. So we're also going to check things like your soffit fence, what's your intake look like. Doesn't
Right.
necessarily have anything to do with the roof, or anything that you would actually need to touch on that roofing system. So we're going to check and make sure that those little vents and stuff on your soffit are not getting clogged. Because what happens is over time, they kind of get clogged a little bit. They have screens in them. You get the dust and the debris and the pollen that's going to kind of start limiting that intake into that vent. So wind blows, it goes in through the intake vents in your soffit, and then it exhausts out through the roof. So we
Okay.
have some pretty good solutions for that. Like if you can't control that intake soffit, a lot of times we'll move to an active ventilation. So that means we use a lot of whirlybirds or turbine vents. So those are actually they're kind of an old school way to deal with it, but the wind blows and it turns it. It basically works like a fan, and it just draws that heat and that hot and cold air out of the attic space for you. So depending on what your roof is set up like, we're going to recommend a certain form of ventilation for you so that you can eliminate those problems in the future.
Perfect. So we've talked a lot about the ventilation and everything. In your opinion, Ryan, what is the most important factor that determines how long a roof will last?
So there's 4 main reasons. It's going to be poor installation, inadequate ventilation, corners cut on the flashing during the install, and then neglected maintenance. Poor installation is probably number one thing that we see here.
Okay. So that one's your biggest one.
Yeah, that's the biggest one. And that could be, you know, it's typically not the material that's going to fail. We've been doing this since 99.7, and the number one reason roofs fail is not the material, it's the install. 80% of the leaks come at transition areas with that flashing detail. Areas that we see that leak in the middle of the field is going to be overdriven nails or underdriven nails. So typically an underdriven nail is going to start working itself out, and it's going to actually pop through that top layer of shingle, cause a hole, and then you're going to have a leak in the main area of the field, which, having somebody being able to figure out how to lay down shingles is not the most difficult thing in the world. But not having that pressure set right on your guns or how they're getting that stuff installed can cause a pretty big difference there, and cause those issues and they're going to pop up about the 8 to 10 year range before you're going to see it, when most of the guys are going to be like storm chasers, are going to be gone and out of town and not responsible for it.
Wow, that makes complete sense. So now that we've brought up all the concerns, so just for homeowners, what are the signs that your roof is aging faster than it should?
So those signs would probably be, you're going to see a lot of excess granules, loss of granules in the gutters. You're going to see them kind of come out the downspout. There's a lot of those on the roof, those granules, that stone coated granules. But they're going to just kind of start wearing off a little bit quicker. Some of that could be a ventilation. Blistering is going to be another thing. If you don't have proper ventilation, the shingles are going to blister, and that's exactly what it sounds like. Just like if you got a blister from being out in the sun, they're going to kind of bubble and pop, and the shingles will do that to you as well. But the key is just keeping an eye on those kind of items, which having regular roof inspections on your roof. We've actually started going back to some of our old roofs here, and we typically, about every 5 years after we installed a roof, is when we want to take another look at that, just to see if there's anything that may have gotten missed, make sure that the flashings are holding up. And then the biggest thing is we're also holding the manufacturers accountable as well. So if that material isn't performing like we want it to, we're going to be able to hit that inspection at the 5 years, or 10 years is typically when it's going to pop up. And then, because we offer extended warranties on things, which are very inexpensive, it's probably the cheapest insurance that you can ever buy. And if you're doing those inspections every 5 years, you're going to be able to be on top of that.
Perfect. So this is kind of an obvious question, but you can kind of go into a little bit of detail on it. Does a 15-year-old roof automatically have another 15 years of life left in it?
No, absolutely not. I think that's it's kind of a misconception. We at Right Roofing, we typically focus on the details that most contractors skip. And those details that are getting skipped in that 15-year time frame, those are the stuff that's going to actually burn you. And it can cost you tens of thousands of dollars if those details aren't paid attention to.
No, that makes sense. So we've gone over quite a bit today, but just to kind of wind this up. So how do you at Right Roofing assess a roof's lifespan without pushing unnecessary replacements, Ryan?
So we try to assess everything before we're just throwing numbers at people for a cost. So we're going to assess all those factors that we just talked about. Is your ventilation right? Were the details done right? Were the flashing details done perfectly? Has there been some neglected maintenance that could kind of progress that, hurt that lifespan of that roofing system? So It all comes down to the install, man. If that install was done right perfectly and good the first time, you might get closer. You might have another 15 years on that roof, but that regular inspection period for you, about every 5 years, depending on how old your roof is getting. And then we'd let you know. And we kind of use a consultative approach as well. If you're going to be in that house for another 10 to 15 years, and the roof is starting to grow a little algae on it, we might be like, well, you could do it now, maybe beat inflation, maybe it makes sense for you to do, but we're here to do the right thing for the homeowner, um, and give them a little bit of heads up before that time comes.
Perfect. So I love the honesty approach on that one. That's one of the best things that you and I have learned over our conversations is that you're always looking out for the homeowner and their best interest, and not just trying to make a fast buck like your little in and out companies that come in after every hailstorm or derecho that we have here in Iowa lately.
Yeah.
So we all really appreciate that. You've given us a lot to think about. Um, maybe everybody should just call you if your roof's over 5 years old. They should probably just give you a call at Right Roofing, have you guys come up there and take a look, and at least they know they're going to get an honest answer.
Yeah, let us check it. Let us check it out. Yep.
Perfect. Well, another great informative episode. You really know your stuff, and I appreciate talking to you every time, Ryan. So thanks for joining us again at Right at Home, the homeowner's guide. Inside guide to getting it done right the first time. So that's what we do. Thanks, Ryan, and I look forward to our next talk.
All right. Thanks, Mike.